Hey everybody, Josh the RV Nerd of Bish's RV here with a video today at your request. I asked the question in a previous video, would you like me to make kind of a lithium battery beginner's guide sort of video? And the number of responses I got were absolutely crazy. So what we're not going to get today is a super technical, big, in-depth information because frankly, the average user doesn't need that. This will just be something where like, okay, I'm John Q. Anybody, and I just want to know the benefits and the drawbacks, the positive and the negative of a lithium battery in an RV equation, just enough to be able to get through the day. That's what we're going to do. We're going to look at where they shine, where they don't. We're going to talk some safety items, cost vectors, and all kinds of different things. And, you know, if you appreciate how we listen to you and we just give you the content that you're looking for, hit that subscribe button and let's get started. So let's start with the benefits of going with a lithium battery over something like a conventional flooded lead acid battery that has been the norm for the majority of the history of the RV industry. I think probably the biggest reason people go lithium is the greater capacity that it has. Again, without getting super technical, lithium holds more electricity than a common flooded lead acid battery. Batteries are usually given their capacities in terms of amp hours. So like if you forget batteries for a second, if you think of gas tanks, we think of gallons. When you start talking gas tanks, but electrical, we start talking amp hours. Watt hours would be easier, but we always talk amp hours for, I don't know, reasons. That's just what we do. So a common lead acid battery will have fewer amp hours, less electricity stored within it, lower capacity, lower reserve than you know, a lithium battery. And typically lithium batteries can actually there's all kinds of different sizes, but there are some lithium batteries that are smaller, rivaling the lower capacities of a lead acid battery, but there are some lithium batteries that are substantially larger than anything you could reasonably apply to an RV application. Now, one of the other cool things about that is how much of the battery that can be used. In a common flooded lead acid battery, you can only use about 50% of it. So let's just use a round number, say 50 amp hours. If a flooded lead acid battery is rated for 50 amp hours, that means you could only actually use 25 of them. And as that charge available on the battery gets lower, it actually is providing a lower and lower reduced output. They don't have a continuous even output. And if you try to use the battery below 50%, you actually damage the battery and you lower its total top end capacity, which means when you recharge it, of the 50% that's available, less of that is now available. Lithiums don't do that. Part of their greater capacity is that you can usually use about 90% of the battery instead of 50. And it provides 100% even output all the way down to the point where it can't do anything anymore. So it's kind of on or off. Think of it like digital instead of analog in that way. And the other thing is, if you do completely discharge a lithium battery like that, when you recharge it, it tends to fully accept 100% recharge. Very rarely will its top end capacity actually be reduced. So not only does it have a bigger gas tank, but you can use more of the gas tank and refill it without the capacity of the gas tank getting reduced over time. That's the biggest reason I think a lot of people go lithium, especially if you're boondocking, if you're off-gridding, if you're going to spend a lot of time using a lot of 12-volt sources in an RV, which is one of the main power sources in the RV, obviously, then that's a really good way to go. Another major benefit of going with a lithium battery is that they weigh less. And I don't know if you've noticed this, especially in the small camper segment, but frankly, there's examples of this across the entirety of the RV industry, especially towables. But RVs, I call it the fattening of campers. Every year, seems like every RV gets a little bit heavier every year, and sometimes it's really hard to even understand why. The trick with that is a lot of times, like this floor plan behind us right here, let's say it was originally released 10 years ago. At the time, it was engineered for the weight and the load expectation of the floor plan then, but as it's gotten heavier every year, its available cargo capacity has reduced every year as the dry weight approaches its GVWR maximum. And a lot of times that doesn't change until it hits a really critical factor. There's a lot of RVs out there, to be kind, to say they have minimal cargo ratings, and some of them are just frankly way too light. If the RV is constantly being towed closer to its maximum GVW, every nut, bolt, widget, whiz-bang, fastener, suspension, brakes, tires, everything is closer to its maximum allowable amount of stress. So any weight you can save there helps. On the average, if you look at an equivalent amp hour rating, lithium batteries will save you 55 to 70% weight roughly as compared to a lead acid battery. Another really cool thing about lithium batteries is that they can be safely stored inside the body of the RV. So like right here, we have a common flooded lead acid battery on the tongue of the RV. It has to be there because they produce gases and they have to ventilate, and you have to have really good ventilation. Technically speaking, a lithium battery could actually be housed inside the cargo compartment of this RV because it doesn't do that off-gassing, and that wouldn't in itself propose a sort of safety hazard. And a lot of people like that for the theft factor, being able to store their big expensive battery away from the the thieves is something that gives them some peace of mind. Quick trick with that though, most RVs are not made with the expectation of a lithium battery being installed. So to kind of hedge their bets and play it safe, most RV builders will still run the wiring leads for the batteries to the outside of the RV, whether it's the tongue on a travel trailer or in a little side saddle compartment with ventilation on a lot of fifth wheels. Your wiring will be out here. So if you do want an internally stowed lithium battery, a lot of times you have to move wiring to do that. It's not the world's biggest process, it's just a thing. Very few builders offer a factory intended lithium solution, and even then usually it's an option. A couple other quick little factors on lithium batteries that are pretty cool. They tend to charge a lot faster, assuming they're given the correct wiring and the correct juice. They tend to charge up a lot faster. So not only do you have a greater, longer capacity, they can suck juice up more quickly and get you back into that, charged up camping stage. Also, for a number of reasons, one of which is the way that they don't tend to get damage from discharging too heavily. They tend to last a lot longer. A lot of deep cycle marine batteries on a lot of travel trailers, I know some people that replace them almost every year or 2 or 3. You shouldn't have to do that if they're properly maintained, but it's so easy to discharge them to a way that actually damages them that tends to be the case. Lithium batteries, because they can just keep accepting, and by the nature of the battery, it tends to last longer. I mean, it's maybe not unreasonable to have a 8 to 10 to, some people will say, up to 15-year lifespan on one of those. I don't personally have experience running one that long. With all of my experience coming from more like flooded batteries, that sounds crazy to me, but that could be an awesome factor. And that actually starts to lead me into some of the drawbacks of lithium batteries. I think the biggest initial pain factor on a lithium battery is the upfront cost. Just there's really no way around it. Generally speaking, the upfront cost of a lithium battery versus a flooded battery is higher. Now, how much depends on the size of lithium you're getting. There are smaller lithium batteries that will generally rival the amp hour rating of a lead acid battery. Now, keep in mind, we already talked about how equivalent amp hours doesn't mean equivalent function and output, but chances are, if you're going lithium, it's usually because you have a more intensive use planned where you need longer usage points without being plugged in or running a generator. And that usually means you're going to go bigger lithium. And some of the big lithiums could easily run you $1,000 or, I don't know, maybe more on some of the really big ones. It depends on what you're going to do with it or how many you're going to get, because nothing says that we're only limiting ourselves to one battery here, especially when you can get, lithiums are smaller profile and lighter weight. You can pack more in there without dinging your cargo capacity, as we already discussed. But one factor to consider, if your experience has been, man, I replace my battery every 2 or 3 years, and you've had an RV for 10 years, you might find that you could have offset those costs with one lithium battery. So the cost factor kind of depends on the long-term usage of this. It's the difference between upfront benefit versus long-term gain. You know what I mean? There's other things, though, that we're going to talk about that actually can add to the cost of a lithium install beyond just the battery itself. And that conversation comes from the charging side of a lithium battery. Lithium batteries are a little more power hungry than a common lead acid battery. Again, without getting too technical, they want to pull more juice faster, harder, and that's part of the reason they charge up a little more quickly. Historically, RVs weren't made with lithium batteries in mind. They were made with common 12-volt, car battery style batteries, marine batteries in mind. That's why your wiring is out in a ventilated area, things like that. As a result, historically, RV charging systems have not been made with lithium in mind, and historically, they didn't interact properly with lithium batteries. Now, most newer RVs for the past quite a few years actually have been made with these auto detect converters. Yeah, they will provide some charging into a lithium battery, but without getting super specific, they kind of barely work for a lithium battery. They will get some charge to the lithium battery, but usually not even enough to fully top it off. A lot of your, especially your more price sensitive RVs out there, some of your more premium RVs have converters now that will do the job. But, which ones? That's a great question to ask a salesperson to see if they'll investigate that for you. But a lot of RVs converters, especially in your more affordable segments, might get the battery up to about 80%. From there, you kind of have to rely on something like a solar package, if the RV even has one, to get it topped back off to 100% or get the RV plugged in. But even then, a lot of times, because that goes through the converter, it usually still won't get it fully topped off. And a solar package, yeah, could it get to 100%? It could, but it's gonna take a hot minute. Charging comes from a couple different ways, though. Not only does the RV have its own onboard converter systems that you might want to investigate, but you may want to make sure that applying a lithium battery to an RV won't screw up your vehicle. Because when you talk about battery cells and electricity reserves, basically, if you hook two of them together, they try to mirror one another, and they can only work as good as the worst one. So that's why, like, if you have an older battery on your RV and you're like, I depleted a little too quickly, I think I want to get a second battery. What you shouldn't do is just buy an additional second battery and hook them together, because now you'll have two bad batteries instead of two working together to give you a greater capacity. You should buy two fresh batteries. Now, if you have lithium batteries on your RV and your vehicle has a charge line, so like if you plug your vehicle into the RV and you can get 12-volt power in the RV without a battery on the camper whatsoever, that means that the vehicle's 12-volt system is now connected to and charging the RV. That also means that if you have a lithium battery on the RV and you have a common style battery on your vehicle, you have now hooked them together, and they are trying to mirror each other, but they can't. It's not even that the lithium battery won't work really well. They just work so differently that they can't even speak the same language. And what can happen is you could damage electrical aspects of your vehicle, like your alternator or some other things. There's a way around that. It's called a DC to DC charger, and it goes between the two batteries, and it makes sure that they play nice and everything goes honky-dory. A lot of RVs today with factory offered lithium packages do not include a DC to DC charger. Whether it's because they don't know, they don't care, I don't know. Some do. Like Brinkley Model G comes standard with some lithium stuff from Renergy, and it includes a DC to DC charger, so you don't nuke your electrical system. But especially when you get into smaller vehicles, some bigger vehicles can handle it, but a lot of smaller vehicles won't, and you'll end up cooking something. A DC to DC charger, depending on the capacity it can handle, could be anywhere from an additional $150 to $300 on top of a more expensive battery, plus install. And I don't know if you've looked at tech labor rates. They're crazy. They're crazy, guys. So you're probably looking, I'm gonna shoot from the hip here. I haven't quoted this out. I'm gonna say probably an extra $500 easy to add a DC to DC converter. on top of the cost of the lithium battery. So the total cost of ownership and investment here is something that you need to really consider. Now, you might notice I've got the hoodie out under the insulated vest right now because it's hitting the time of year when I'm recording this that it's starting to get a little bit chilly. I woke up with the frost on the grass today. It'll probably be 60 this afternoon, and it'll get chilly again tonight. Lithiums are fussy when it comes to temperature. You can generally use the battery at almost any temperature that you're going to reasonably experience as most RVers. Like, well below freezing and well up into the hot ranges, a lithium battery can still safely discharge its juice. Replenishing it is another story. It can be too hot to charge a lithium, but where you really run into tricks, especially where I live, is it can be too cold to charge lithium without damaging it. Now, a lot of your more modern lithium batteries, most lithium batteries you buy today, especially from any reputable name brand company, they have a safety limit switch where if it's below freezing, usually about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0 degrees Monopoly money, I don't know if you find that funny. I found that very humorous. Anyway, if it's below freezing, a lithium battery won't charge. A lot of lithium batteries have an internal heating unit where they will automatically warm themselves up before charging. The trick is that usually requires them using their own internal juice, which is a greater discharge, which might prevent them from even having the opportunity to ever get charged in the first place because they might not have enough juice to hit the desired temperature. Again, one of the cool things is that lithiums, if they do get totally drained, you can usually fully recharge them, but you're going to have to get it warmed up first. Lithiums will also tend to hold their charge longest and avoid the greatest amount of passive decay. Like every battery, if you're not using it, slowly bleeds a little juice because magic. But the lithium batteries usually like to be just blindly stored somewhere between 60 to 80 degrees. So if you live where I live and it gets darn cold in the winter, even if your RV has a solar package, you probably still want to pull that lithium battery for winter storage and cover the solar panel to make sure it doesn't accidentally activate the solar charge controller, which can cause that controller to get burned out a couple years after you bought it. Always right after the warranty ends. You ever notice that? But one of the big questions for me, what's safer? A flooded lead acid battery or a lithium battery? And it's funny, you get different answers depending on who you talk to. If you talk to the lead acid battery guys, they say, well, obviously our stuff is safer. It's been around forever. It's proven. You talk to the lithium guys, they say that's old tech and it has problems. Ours are obviously safer. The real answer is safer how? They're each safer in different ways. So you have to kind of choose which one of these scares you the least. A flooded lead acid battery is safer, generally speaking. It's considered safer in terms of fire risks. Is it impossible for that battery to catch fire? No, but if it does, it tends to be a little easier to contain. It doesn't tend to be as violent. If a lithium battery catches fire, it's a pretty big event. My wife was actually getting a small back surgery once, and when I was sitting in the waiting room, another person in the waiting room, their vape pen, its lithium battery exploded, and it looked and sounded like a grenade went off. There was hot, burning lithium shrapnel and metal flying all over the place. Fire departments, police came and interviewed these people because they wanted to make sure they weren't trying to set a bomb off in a hospital. And that was just a tiny little vape pen battery, let alone a large battery on an RV. Those of you who have been watching this channel a while, you know that down the street, my brother actually has his own RV consignment store, not at all affiliated with Bish's RV. And that facility suffered a 100% total catastrophic fire and loss. And when the fire inspector came, he was pretty sure, it burned so hot he couldn't even verify, but he was pretty sure that it originated from a lithium battery, whether it was from a tool or from an RV that had lithium batteries in it in the shop, which they did have in there that night. They weren't sure. But it burned so hard. Like once lithium is exposed to air and water, it burns. Like it's a chain reaction, and the only thing that stops it is that it has to burn itself out. So if it goes, man, it's bad. But lead acid batteries, where they are not as safe, is because they have a constant off-gassing. They have to be ventilated properly. You don't want to just store them in the coat closet over winter or something like that. That's not safe at all. Actually, now that I say that out loud, I don't think that was a random example I just came up with. I think in the winter, my dad used to have a battery in the coat closet in my house. That explains a lot of things about me. But it requires more ventilation, and they require more maintenance. Like, you may have to open the top of this thing. You can have effectively the acid, the water in the batteries, which becomes caustic from the charge aspect of it. You could spill it. It could cause corrosion. It could cause leakage. So they both have up and down sides. In the wash, I think that if you twisted my arm and asked me which one I think is safer, I think overall lithium is probably safer, but if it does go bad, it goes so bad. So as is the case with a lot of my videos, my message here is there isn't a best battery. There's the battery that works best for you. I make no qualms about it. I'm a park pavement princess. When I do get out to go camping, I tend to park camp. I tend to have full hookups. I tend to always have power available. I don't need massive expensive batteries. I have an absolute basic base level lead acid battery when I go camping, and it's all that I need. That works just fine. If you are going to do maybe a little bit of extended weekends, you have a small to medium, say 200 to 400 watt solar package or something like that, you might be able to get by just adding a second lead acid battery. But again, make sure you have two batteries that are kind of fresh in terms of age and match one another. Don't mix an old with a new battery, because you're going to end up effectively with the function of two old batteries instead of one old plus new. They just don't work in an additive fashion like that. If you're wanting to go a little longer, you might look into something like dual 6-volt batteries mounted in series. That will give you 12 volts and give you about 4 times the reserve of a common flooded lead acid 12 volt. Or you can go lithium. And when you go lithium, keep in mind, you might need the extra equipment like a lead acid battery, but if you're going to do longer extended stays and more, like, I understand a lot of boondock people are really cheesed off about the fact that you almost cannot find an RV nowadays that offers a gas and electric refrigerator, which is far more power conservative in a boondocking scenario. But the fact is, it's not going to change. It's just not changing, at least anytime soon. So almost everything built today is just dominated by 12-volt fridges and smaller RVs, and a combination of 12-volt and 110 fridges with inverters in bigger towable RVs. When you're in a motorhome, you have other onboard power solutions. It's less of an issue. But in towables, if you're boondocking and you're going to go an extended time, good lithium packages, possibly with a DC to DC converter and some solar to get you through, and maybe even then still a small generator as a little bit of a backup. That might be the way you want to go. It's a more expensive way, but that might be what's required for you. And yeah, technically there's far more that you could learn about lithiums, but for the average person, I feel pretty strongly this will be enough to get you educated enough to be able to navigate the purchase and usage processes without damaging your RV or spending money you don't necessarily need to. That's my goal here. If you have like, hey, Josh, here's my situation, what works for you, contact the people here or whatever. I understand that not everybody watching this purchases from Bish's RV, but contact a location, explain to them your intended usage, and see what makes sense to you. My personal recommendation, remember in our last little clip there, I talked about how you have a 12 volt, you could add a second one, you could do 2 6 volts and then go lithium. Mentally, for me, that's kind of the step-by-step process that makes sense for me if you don't have any experience in the equation, because you might find you don't necessarily need to spend $1,000 on a lithium and then a 500 on a DC to DC charger or something like that, plus solar costs or generators or whatever. You might find that a couple 6-volt batteries might be enough to get you through. It just depends on your situation. Everybody camps differently. There's not a one size fits all. It's what size fits you. And sometimes it takes a little bit of the swag system, the scientific wild guess system, and sometimes a little bit of experience. And usually we put the two together, we can get you there. Today's video again came at your request. If there's something else like this, you're like, hey Josh, I don't need to know the technical details. Just give me the dummy's guide to X, Y, and Z. Leave me some notes. If enough people request the same thing, I'll see what I can do. Till then, take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.